Yo, 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 what is going on, IK Familia? Oh, man, you already know that we're back, and we are excited. Well, I was going to say more excited than ever, but excited just came out first, and I wasn't able to transition well to more. So, what do I want to talk about today? What I want to talk about is having what it really takes to have a good mental state in your realistic approach for what you're coming in as an alliance leader in these types of games. Right? I cannot tell you how important I truly feel player psychology is, having a good mental state when you come in, understanding the expectations that are on you as an alliance leader, and how you as a leader factor in and directly affect where a server or kingdom can go, right? So this isn't really necessarily about Infinity Kingdom, but we are going to be using some Infinity Kingdom examples, but this also is much broader and wider than just that, right? This is a video that literally will apply to any and every single kingdom builder, anyone who ever decides that they want to start an alliance, right? I think it is really important to have realistic expectations on what does it really take, what is really required to be an alliance leader in these types of games, and the responsibility that you have along with the accountability that you need to hold yourself to. So what is this, right? What am I really talking about? So as an alliance leader, right, you have what I like to refer to as this kind of passive power in a server or a kingdom, especially if you are a higher ranked alliance. I really want to say this kind of more so applies to like the top 10, top 20, and you'll notice that there are here, let me take a look at the ranking just so I can give you guys an example. So you can see here, right, that any of these alliances, maybe for us, I'd say around top 20, top 20, top 18, right, this is a little bit more of, right, the alliances that are won, right, just because of how new the server is, right, and it could be more than that as well, but, right, those are still, they're still active, they're still participating, right, depending on how many you have, and I'm sure our list goes a little bit lower than that, but the point here is that when you have an active alliance, and you are capturing cities, you are powering up, you are leveling up, your players are engaged, right, you are a part of the conversation in the server, that is where you as an alliance leader have to really assess, and I like to really believe, truly understand what your worth is and how you are factoring into that server's overall development, right? You are, and let me start off with one area. So as an alliance lead, let's just talk about what you do as far as how you work with other leads, right? This is a big thing. How do you interact? How do you talk with other leads? Right? Because if you just come in with the approach of, and you're talking to someone, you come in with the approach of, okay, well, I'm going to pitch them my ideas and my suggestions, and if they don't like it, okay, then they can go kick rocks, and I'm going to do whatever I want. Okay, well, now because of the decision you made, right, and how you entered a conversation, you're going to now impact, obviously depending on how much impact, right, is usually dependent on how high of a rank your alliance is, right, what can now happen in that server. Right? Maybe the decision you made now potentially leads to a fight, right? Maybe your alliance fights, and then maybe a couple other alliance fight, and then maybe an alliance that was on the fence about it, and they're just like, all right, we're just going to go and fight too and go to war. We'll just go join this side, right? And now all of a sudden it slowly escalates because either someone felt like they got their feelings hurt or they weren't listened to, right? Whatever it may have been, and now all of a sudden it escalates. I cannot tell you how often this happens in servers. Or the other way that it can go, which is that you have a conversation with other leads, or let's say that someone comes in and attacks your city, but they don't communicate with you, right? Maybe no one's communicating. And that can also be another challenge where some leads, right, and maybe instead of reaching out to the leader first, right, in certain situations that would make sense to do it, right, and of course time allowing, then you say, well, hey, why are you guys attacking the city? And maybe that lead says, oh, well, maybe they say, oh, I didn't know. Maybe they say something like, oh, well, there was no alliance here, right? Maybe they just give you some reason, right? And, maybe you give them a little benefit of the doubt and you tell them, no, this is our city, right? We're still using it. And they're like, okay, no, sorry, we're sorry, you can capture back, right? We're not going to bother you anymore. Maybe they never do. And that's something that obviously you wouldn't know, right? Because some people might just make the assumption like, oh, okay, they're attacking our city, right? They're aggressive, right? Maybe they didn't send anyone to go and defend right away. The point is that there are situations you can find good answers to and get good types of explanations from, right? If we just try to reach out and communicate as a leader. In addition to this, right, when it talks about kind of being in a good mental state to be a lead, right, what are some of the responsibilities that just defaultly come with being a leader? Well, as a leader, you are going to get a lot of messages. You are going to have to either choose to answer wholeheartedly, barely answer, or don't answer at all. Right? You kind of have three options. And it could be anything from, people adding you in World Chat or Kingdom Chat, right? If you get some green messages, I don't have any right now, right? Then you would answer those, right? These are just things that I think are really important to have a good understanding of, because you are tech support, you are customer service, you are who other leaders will reach out to first, who other players and other officers will reach out to first, whether they're in your alliance or not, at least most of the time. And of course, depending on the situation. But you usually will be getting quite a large amount. And again, also depends on how high of a rank you are, right? If you're a number 1 overall alliance, you're probably going to get a lot more messages than the number 10 alliance, right? Where a lower ranked alliance might get more messages from players within their alliance than necessarily outside of their alliance, right? Unless it's someone that wants to apply or try and join, right? Those are usually some of the more often ones. But it is still important to recognize that as a leader, players, even in your alliance, right? Let's just talk about this. Players in your alliance are watching you, right? It may not be everyone, but every alliance is going to have some amount of players that pay attention to what the leader does, the choices they make, the mails they send. Are they formatted? Are they templated, right? Do they look professional? When they respond to players, right? Are they giving kind of, barely any effort answers or any quality answers, or are they actually going into detail and really giving some good answers? Are they responding to people via DMs, right? If I'm a player and I message my lead, and I don't hear back in 2 days, that's probably a red flag. If I don't hear back in 24 hours, probably a red flag. Right? To some people might look and check to see if you're on. They'll message you because you're on, and if you don't message them before you get offline and they notice you went offline, that could be a red flag to them. And again, don't get me wrong. Some of these things are, kind of uncontrollable, but most of them are usually kind of within your control when it comes to how you respond, especially if you're online and you're paying attention to these things. Players notice this. They will also notice, in addition to that, how you write things, the tone you take. Do you, right, when you talk about things in game, right, do they feel like you have a good understanding of in-game mechanics, of knowledge in certain areas, on the type of advice and the tips that you're giving? These are all things that alliance leaders, in my opinion, right, at least at a fundamental level, right, should hopefully either know or be able to, if an event comes out or is coming out, as an example, that they might not be too familiar with, right, really pay attention to the event. Maybe you go and you look on YouTube and see if people have covered the events before. Maybe you look at the calendar so you can kind of get a head start on what events are coming up. And you can look at the event, and if it's one you haven't played before, or maybe it's a new event that no one's played before, right? Read the event, get a good understanding of it, and then, play a little bit of it yourself if you can before you send a mail out. Unless the event has enough detailed information as far as rules and processes that you can disseminate from that and then draft up a good alliance mail. These are things that players will look at. I often see leads or officers posting in World Chat and Kingdom Chat. And, with respect, I've even seen some players, right, from our family alliance. And the thing is that, right, you'll sometimes see people making borderline posts, questionable posts, or just flat out rude and disrespectful posts. And, don't get me wrong, right, it's an online game. People can, say whatever they want. But I do think that having a little bit of self-awareness for how we conduct ourselves is that age-old saying, right? Treat others how you would want to be treated, right? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I'm a big believer of, just really trying to avoid world chat, mainly for the just idea that world chat can usually turn toxic pretty quick if just given a couple nudges. And even though I myself I'll engage every once in a while, I'm very aware, right, of what am I posting, how am I wording it, right? I think these are things that as leaders and officers we should all be wary of, right? It's fine if you want to play the alter ego, I can say whatever I want, no one's going to find me card. But honestly, if it was me and you were in my alliance and you did some stuff like that, I would just tell you to kick rocks, right? Like, again, what I should say is I would tell you to kick rocks after I talk to you. And I think that's important, right? I think it's good for us to talk to those people first, let them know, right, that this just wasn't appropriate, right? And if you want to have these types of conversations or you want to say these things, right, you can go do it in DMs or I mean, hopefully not, right? Or you can go do it somewhere else, right? That's just not here. I think having those conversations first, and instead of kind of being like, okay, we're just going to remove you from the alliance kind of a thing. But the point I'm making there further than that is players also pay attention to what you say as a lead, what you say as an officer in world chat, in kingdom chat, in alliance chat. And even if, a lot of players use Discord. Screenshots might get shared. That might get passed around. You don't know who's watching, right? You don't know who may take a screenshot or a picture of something someone said and who it's going to get sent to or who it gets passed along to. That's why I think it's really important as a leader where you are, I don't want to say kind of always, God, what's the word I'm looking for? Not appropriately correct, but like professionally correct, right? I don't necessarily think it needs to be anything to that level, but I do think that as as leaders, right, we should be at least a little bit more cognizantly aware of what we say, how we say it, and then also recognizing that, again, having good experience, I think, is very important, right? If you are someone that comes and you have a management background, if you've done customer service, if you interact with a lot of people on a daily basis, you are building good people skills, good social skills, where even as an example, if let's say you work in customer service, right, one of the great things that you're building just from being in a customer service environment is how to adapt to multiple situations, how to form pre-templated messages in your head on how you're going to respond based on the amount of experiences that you come across. As an example, if you have someone, and let's say you work in a sporting goods store, and you have someone that comes to you and they ask you a question about, let's say, soccer, and they say, well, my kid's this age, I need to kind of get him this shoe that's a little bit wider because, his foot isn't that thin. I need something that's going to accommodate, right? You immediately know the moment that they say kid and wide and shoe, right? These are trigger words probably, and in other similar situations, you then already kind of have this templated response, right? That's saved in your brain where you can now you already know what to say, right? You're just kind of waiting for the customer to finish their question or their ask, and then of course if they add on anything else to it. Very similar to when you then transition that in-game, right? If you have a lot of experience and you know how to deal with certain situations, right, you'll have an answer. But if you don't, then usually it's good to try and either defer to other people that have more experience than you do, right, or ask questions, or, right, try and just really analyze what someone is saying before you then respond. And I think that is always really important, right, to kind of like watch what we say, so what is it, do as I say, not as I do, kind of a thing, which is always kind of the, double standard, I guess, to an extent, depending on how you want to view it, but, and I'm sure only in some situations. But again, in this case, right, I think it's really important for people that have these types of backgrounds, right, that are going to have some of these benefits and some of these advantages when you go into leading an alliance. And if you're someone who, again, right, I think it's one of the reasons for me, right now, when I pick leaders out for my jump projects, right, if I ever end up doing another one, hopefully not, at least in IK, and this will be the last one because things are amazing. But even in this case, right, one of the things we did is, we really tried to focus on players who were over 21, right? I mean, unless you just had an outstanding application interview, right? This is one of the reasons we did that, was because, again, players who are usually older typically have a little bit more knowledge in life. They have a little bit more experience, whether that be real world or in-game as well. And those I think are players that, are probably going to be able to make, on average, more consistent kind of sound judgment calls and decisions and be able to discuss things and not really get flustered or emotional, right? These are things that I think are really important for leaders to have. And obviously, don't get me wrong, it's always good to get experience. And if you don't have any experience, right, the only way you can really get experience is by doing it. But I just think that if you're going to do that, right, and let's say you've never been a leader before, but you want to try it, I hope this is a good video giving you kind of an introduction on things that you're going to come across. And, right, it's okay. I actually think it's a little bit better of an approach just to be pretty open-minded, right? It doesn't mean that you have to kind of be the Jim Carrey yes man, right, where someone gives you an idea or suggestion because you're so new, you're just like, yes, yes, yes. But I do think that it's good to be open-minded where you're taking in information, processing it, and you're either able to consult with other players that as an example, or maybe that have other Kingdom Builder experience, or you go on kind of an official Discord and you ask questions if you need to, or you find people that you can ask questions to. And then worst case, if you just absolutely have no one, right, then I would just say, right, take time to read and learn in-game mechanics, and, right, you read like the information blurbs on events, right, you test and you try things out. I think all of these things are really important to do as a lead so you can have a better understanding, right? You don't have to be the most knowledgeable person, but I do think that when it comes to your personal mental state, I think that is vitally important when you are approaching these types of games, because the social aspect is very prevalent here. And you'll notice that, there's a lot of people that are always talking. I mean, my alliance chat, I'm sure many of my other R6s and their alliances and in their alliance chat is extremely active. And there's people that just, again, they like to socialize. They like to engage. And, if you find that you're just not a very social person, right, you might find it being a little challenging being a leader of an alliance, right? So my big thing is, again, right, have good realistic expectations, right, for how you approach the game mentally, what the actual real responsibilities are, and probably even more so the expectations of you, right, that you will be held indirectly accountable to and can be by your players, by the community, right, and how you do things and how you say things, right? And that's why my view on a lot of things is just try and approach things in kind of a neutral standpoint, right? Especially if you may not have as much experience as others, or maybe you haven't seen that much, right? It's okay to come in and just learn, just watch, just pay attention, right? You don't have to come in with a strong opinion on one side or the other, right? It's okay just to sit back, watch what happens. Again, look for cues, look for what other leaders are doing. Right, even if you reach out and you ask questions, or if you do it, for leaders that are in other servers, maybe, or kingdoms that maybe not your own, right, if you're worried about that. I mean, again, there's a lot of ways to gain knowledge so that way you can make more informed decisions as a leader, right, based on the type of server you're playing in. So anyways, I'm sure this kind of turned into somewhat of a slight rant, as sometimes they usually do on my little player psychology moments, but I do hope that y'all enjoyed me just talking about the mental state that I think is really important and sometimes very overlooked for leaders, and what they go through and what you may go through as a leader. Don't get me wrong, it's extremely gratifying, it's humbling, it's a very fun experience, but it does require time. It requires your time, your free time, to invest, right? It's not just, I'm going to make this alliance, I'm going to log in, once a day for 10 minutes, do a couple things, and log out. No. I mean, on average, just to give you an idea, my R6s, we're probably, on and off the game. Gosh, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, albeit just kind of leaving it up and letting it sit, as far as actually doing actions, probably hours. Anywhere from maybe like 4 to 6 hours, right? As far as like actually just doing actions in the game, and maybe 3 to 6 hours, give or take, just depending on the day and how much work there is. But I mean, again, right? That's you going in and doing things, right? Not just leaving it open and, waiting for something to happen. So again, right, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And again, the bigger server you have, the more active server, the more organized of a group you have, right? There's all these other factors that can increase the time that you may spend in game. And so again, I just think that is something, because even in the server I'm in now, right, I've seen messages of people saying, other leaders that'll say, oh, I just don't have the time. I can't be on that long. Let's just figure this out quick. And that happens again in every server in every kingdom. And these are the types of responses that you'll get from people that just don't have enough time to be in game. And therefore, in my opinion, I just don't think these people should be leaders. I think they should be officers or just members. Again, right, self-analyzing your real life availability and the amount of time you can put in a game is very important. And not everyone is going to know how demanding being a member of a top alliance is, or being an officer in a top alliance, or being the leader of an active, high-ranked alliance, let alone a top or number one alliance. So anyways, again, I'd love to hear from you guys, right? Let me know your thoughts, your stories, right? Is anything I'm saying right now connecting with you? Have you experienced this, whether it's an Infinity Kingdom, in another kingdom builder, right? Have you seen this from other leaders? Have you experienced these types of things as leaders? How important do you really think having a good mental state and approach to the game when you're coming in as a leader should be? And let me know anything and everything, your thoughts, in the comments below. That is it from me. Until next time, we'll catch y'all later.